Hello to me, my X-Men. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this X-Men 97 1 year anniversary. I'm your host, Ronan Unchained. It is shocking. This thing has been a one freaking year since it dropped. It felt like wow. It felt like last week that the first that interesting Disney Plus event was happening online where like we're putting out tweets of what's going to come out, and then one of the things is X-Men 97. We're doing it. We're gonna go back to the animation that a lot of people got into pop culture in a big bad way, including this one right here. But if you don't know who I am, I'm Ronan and Shane. I cover a lot of pop culture stuff, shows, varieties, live action, animation, whole shebang, books, comics, and whatnot. And if you're interested in seeing some reaction reviews, go to the channel, hit the like button, subscribe, and you can see my reaction for X-Men 97. And it was just a trip, one of the best things I've ever seen, and one of the best things I've had a pleasure of covering and, sharing my enthusiasm with people. So that was a really interesting thing to experience with people. But someone who I've been cooking this idea with for like I think months now of like, hey, when we do an X-Men stuff, we got to team up. And I was like, wait a minute, we're near around the 1 year anniversary since this joint hit. And so I want to bring in someone who we already had in the past. Jake, what's up, man?
What's up? How you doing? How's everybody doing today?
Dude, I've just been telling folks that like, it's felt that already it's been that year shape, and how again it's just so weird that like again I had remember when they announced this thing, and
Yeah.
I thought for sure I expected it to be good, not what I remember from my childhood, but I'm like be good and whatnot, and then this thing just came in swinging.
Yeah.
Um, but tell folks a little bit about you and your background with X-Men and how this came into origin. Because as soon as we discovered that we both love the X-Men, it was like, okay, we got to do this at one point.
Yeah. Um, so, anybody who's, known me for any amount of time knows that X-Men the Animated Series growing up was my all-time favorite X-Men cartoon. You can probably tell by what I'm wearing. I've got this hat, I've got the shirt with the team. And, kind of like you, whenever the announcement for this series came out, part of me was really excited because they were bringing the childhood X-Men that I had grown up with back. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, please don't be just what we've come to expect with a couple of Marvel projects lately, and even some DC ones, where it's just nostalgia bait and you're bringing out the classics just for the sake of bringing it out. I'm like, what is the story here? So that was my biggest question. And like you said, they came in swinging. They were, you know, they definitely kept the tone and the feel of that original show, but the storytelling, because not only was it a different time, and so they weren't allowed to tell, a lot of the darker stories and be as visceral with some of the visuals, especially, but they came in swinging and they were unforgiving, but in the best way. So they really came in hitting hard. Loved what they did with that first season. You asked kind of my background with X Men. So you probably know where I'm going to lead into with this. I don't know if any of yours have heard this or not. You want me to go ahead and go into it because you
Do it,
probably already
man.
know
It,
what
it
this
wouldn't be a stream without that. Tell the story.
Okay. Well, this little hat that I'm wearing here was one of the souvenirs that I got at a retro toy con back in November of 23, where I got to meet a lot of people related to that original show. Eric and Julia Lewald, as well as Mark Edens, the three writers of the pilot and just showrunners for that series. Met a lot of the cast, both current and some of the newer ones that were coming back too over the years. Even met for you guys that know the series, the Rogue episode that featured Miss Marvel for that one single episode. That actress was there. It was actually her first Comic Con, so met her also. Some familiar names like Lenore Zan, Cal Dodd, George Buza, Allison Court, and then later Ray Chase, Matthew Watterson, Adrian Ho, Allison Seeley Smith. More names that came into the roster, and not only did they give this hat away, which funnily enough, came because I was talking to them and they pointed down to the hats. They said, "Hey, we haven't been able to sell any of these hats all day. Do you just want one for free?" I said, "Sure, okay." So not only was that provided, but let me reach back here. Got a number of prints from them as well over the years. Just got to take these out carefully because I've kept it in this bag for a while. So in addition to, taking pictures with them and meeting them and, hearing about all what they had to say, got a series of signed prints from them too. Just showing some of these off. This is Allison Court, the original Jubilee, because the 97 series had a different voice. This is George Buza as Beast. This is Roscoe Hanford, who was the Miss Marvel from the Rogue episode. Of course, that's Wolverine Cal Dodd. And that is Alison Seeley Smith as Storm. That is Sunspot from the new series. Of course, that image was animated to be a direct parallel of Jubilee from the old intro. Yeah. And then this is Rogue Lenore Zan. So met those guys. They're great. Also got this little souvenir. See if I can turn it the right way. Got that from Ray Chase, actually. That was a gift given from him. But probably the biggest souvenir of all that I got when I was talking to the creators, I was able to get my hands on a script from the Night of the Sentinels 2-parter pilot. Got it signed by all 3 writers. So as far as, collector pieces go, probably this whole bit that I just showed is probably my pride and joy as far as collector pieces go. Tried to keep that story as brief as I could.
It's all good. Yeah, when I first heard that story, I was like, "Oh yeah, he drank the Kool-Aid the way I did when I was a kid," and I probably would have done the same thing. And yeah, I love that that vibe and whatnot. I love that. Like, first of all, I need to get me one of those hats as well. I need to get one of those hats, and I love owning scripts of stuff that like either a piece of TV or a movie that I really dug, and just being like, okay, without thinking of the movie shots, how was it on paper, and just seeing how that was executed. I think it's the cinephile in me that I enjoy the most. Hey, Busy.
What's up, Busy?
How you doing, man? If you're not busy and if you want to, just let me know. I'll send you the link to join if you want to talk a little bit of X-Men. But yeah, man, it's been 1 year and they brought a lot of the OG cast back.
Yes, they did.
Unfortunately, I believe Norman Spencer is the one who passed away, and may he rest in peace. OG Cyclops, but
they found a worthy successor to carry on that mantle. I think Ray Chase did a phenomenal job.
Ray Chase did a phenomenal job in bringing back, a character that I had always heard and known that he was the leader and he had this charisma of balancing stuff out, but I had never seen it.
Right.
And seeing shots like this, man, and again, this is the money shot that I'll always remember until the day I die. Mm-hmm. I'm just like, to me, my X-Men. And
yep.
Like the fact that they did so much with this character.
Yeah.
And
like in direct opposition to the movie, Cyclops was an absolute badass in the cartoon.
Yeah, and kudos to oh my god, I keep blanking on his name, which is bad.
Which one?
The actor of Cyclops.
In the movies, James Marsden.
James Marsden. That, like, I think even he has that edge that, maybe in the foreseeable future we'll see that. I'm not, putting out stuff, but just, maybe that's an open opportunity that, like, for Glenn's moment to see him fully go Scott Summers. But even me being a big Wolverine fan, I was so happy that he was not put to the background, although people will say that. But like the fact that, the highlight has always been on him, and I always dug that. But I'm like, no, but the X-Men, I care about it as a whole because I need time to spend with the likes of Aurora Monroe. I need to spend time with the likes of Rogue, of Marie. I need to spend time with the sister, the sisterhood of Jean Grey and Aurora. Like, I need that. And I think not since First Class
First
was
Class, yeah,
was the one that really was like boom, and then this joint hit, and it
yeah,
just
yeah. They actually
shook
felt like a
everybody.
team. They felt like a team, and not just Wolverine being separate from them.
And I think, dude, you tell me if I'm wrong, but like, I was pumped, but I was always like, oh god, is this gonna be a cash grab, or like, are they gonna be able to honor what came before? And I remember hearing the premiere, word of mouth is like, I had a group of friends of mine who was like, you know what, these 2 episodes, I love it more than the whole run of the original '90s show. And I was like, damn, I was like,
Yeah,
okay,
and
and
that's some
yeah,
high praise from people who grew up with that series. And one of the
yeah,
best things I think it did too is, not only did it reintroduce, the older fans like us back into it in a great way, but it also turned several people I know that weren't X-Men fans previously. It got them into the world. It got them wanting to know more about the characters. And, they didn't have to do, 5 seasons of homework to catch up. I mean, granted, you're missing out on great stories, but they were able to just jump right in, and now they wanted to know more about the world, these characters, and these stories. And that's honestly a great thing, because a lot of the movies, even with as many as there were, they didn't really accomplish that task more so than this did.
yeah. I'm there's shots in this show that like will stay with me forever. There's
Yep.
pieces of dialogue that like, you know, please do not let me let you down.
That,
Please don't make me let you down, or let me let you down,
yeah,
just you know
that,
um
and then that whole, you had the shot up earlier, and I was just thinking of it, that Wolverine Nightcrawler action sequence where you see the POV of Nightcrawler's
yeah,
teleportation. My God, I mean, the way that they mixed, the 2D and 3D art style with that animation, this is probably legitimately one of the best animated visually, like just from a visual standpoint. This is one of the best looking cartoons I've ever seen.
yeah, it was one of those moments that I'm like, I have never seen that before ever in my life. I've never seen that, and I'm like,
Yeah,
you could still do that.
right. Yeah,
People could
and
still do that in this day and age.
because they were spread out and this was more a team show and not with one character as the center, because of that, each character got to have their moments. Like even characters like Nightcrawler, who was not part of the main roster in the original series, he only appeared in, I believe, 2 episodes of
Mm,
the original show, and he was one of the standouts in this series for me personally.
yeah,
And even other characters too, like Bishop.
yeah.
Got to see a good amount from him. Morph was a lot cooler in this series than the original
Mm-hmm.
series, because for those
Mm-hmm.
who know that original '90s series, Morph was kind of the comedic relief guy that was always used for gags. He had his emotional stories here and there, but he was never really much of a physical threat or an asset on the battlefield. But here, you see Morph going like, transforming into all these different characters, whether it's characters you had already seen from that original show or characters that exist already in this Marvel universe that was established decades ago. And we'll get into that whole conversation later. But the way they utilized these characters was incredibly creative. So I have to give them kudos for that.
Yeah, up until that point, all I remember was like, "This is what's for you, more." That was all I
Yeah.
remember. And being like, "All
Yep.
right, we're doing this for the homie."
Yeah.
Yeah, and so folks, just give me a heads up. We might talk about the whole series as a whole, or we might just talk about the first 2 episodes, because I mean, just the first 2 episodes is one of the greatest one-two punches
Oh, yeah.
beginnings I've ever seen in any show, movie, book, song, etc., etc., etc.
Agreed.
Um, I really dug that it honored what the X-Men are, and yet was willing to tell a story of them. And it just so happens that, for better for worse, whether people like to admit or not, that like it was echoing history, and history tends to be repeating itself time and time again. And so the fact that like it's a weird angle thing where it's stuff like this and Andor that I think will have a lot lasting legacy and have a huge amount of rewatchability in terms
Oh,
of
yeah.
entertainment, in terms of education, in terms of enlightenment, or letting someone be in someone else's shoes
Yeah.
for 30 to 40 minutes a
And
week.
yeah. And it gives you a unique form of storytelling to where, you don't you don't focus on, just this one main character because, oh, they're the main characters, so you're going to follow them and you're going to like them. It gives you a whole vast array of things to attach yourself to, whether it's, in a show like this where you have the whole team to connect with and like just the world that they're being reintroduced to, or in a case like Andor where the world building is, in my opinion, the biggest strength of the show. So you have all of that lore and history to get attached to.
Yeah, and and again, to see folks take in the new mantles like in Jubilee and seeing how you still feel that innocence of where I grew up, and how you even hear and feel the maturity and some extent, and also still the immaturity of the
Yeah.
characters. I appreciate. It's a tough act. This thing had a tough act. You had to bring back the people that laid the foundation of why you're popular now more than ever. And and again, all credit to Stanley and Jack Kirby who created this. All kudos to Chris Claremont, Louis Simonson, John Byrne, David Cockrum, Terry Austin, Jim Lee, everybody who was involved in the comics. They got us to this point. But that series like opened the floodgates to a lot of people before they read a comic, like myself, and I think even you.
Yeah,
and
that was my first introduction to like the Marvel superhero nerddom world.
And to see now, it's something that like you don't need to have seen the original series to dig this and follow it, but yet, if you have, dude, it's almost like season 1 of Mandalorian. If you're a nerd and know the stuff, you'll catch of it, and you might get a little drift of where stuff might lay out. But if you don't, here's a cool new fresh thing, and I feel like this is a perfect, near perfect, or I dare I say perfect adaptation of what the source material came from, and you can show it to anybody, and you would get pretty much every character, persona, soul, and not be misled of how they feel and how sometimes they may lose their cool and how they'll engage in something. Like if you've never seen who Wolverine is, Cal brings it just as he did back in the 90s with this one. If you want to see why people love Nightcrawler as much as we do, beyond a cool White House sequence in one of the movies, it's like him talking to Remy LeBeau about love, about like, oh, you Americans so dramatic. I blame soap operas, and like to me, dude, this shot like will stay with me till my grave. The fact that this was in Mexico, the fact that this was in Dia de los Muertos, and the fact that it was a show on Disney Plus that was animation, got a moment to mourn fictional characters that are just as real as relatives of mine, in my opinion. Like, I love that shit.
And you got to feel like those characters were real because you saw the real moments in between them. You got to see the moments where, Nightcrawler is, comforting, essentially his sister after she goes through a terrible loss. You get to see, the character of Rogue experience, the hardships of just dealing with who she is, what she has, what she's lost. And, that's a character too that I think was the biggest pleasure for me out of this series, because in my opinion, and in the opinions of many, Rogue was done so dirty in the movies. No fault of Anna Paquin whatsoever.
Yeah.
It was all due to the way that, she was written and portrayed. And, could she have been a decent Rogue if written correctly? I truly think so. But, the way that you saw Rogue in that original 90s cartoon, not just, showing her abilities, but just that charisma she has, that very unique, Southern style charisma, that type of energy, the love that she has for everybody around her. What they essentially did to her in the movies was give her the role that's most commonly associated with Jubilee, which is turning her into Wolverine's little groupie, and that's not what Rogue is. So this show, not only did it, give more layers to her character than the movies ever did, but showed you just how pivotal of an addition she is to the X-Men and how crucial of a member she is to that team.
Yeah, and even as a kid, I was like, why does this feel like Wolverine and Jubilee in the cartoon at the
Right.
time,
Yeah.
and I'm like, but wait a minute, where's the southern accent? Where's
Right.
where she's Cher? She's my Cher. You know, I'm gonna
Yeah.
protect her, and it's just like,
Yeah.
but and again, that's a whole other conversation. And also, I'll put it out there, probably some of the best written female characters of the 21st century. So in this
Yeah.
series right here,
Yeah.
I mean, not throw, choose any cast member in their role, and you find layers to them. You find
Yes.
layers to them. When
Yeah.
I
No.
say names like again Lenore Zahn, like I say names like oh my gosh, I love how I'm such a nerd, and yet I forget the Allison
Which
Seeley Smith. As you get like again, even
Catherine
oh my
Disher, Jennifer Hale.
yeah, dude, like it's again, and to me, I think from a male perspective, a Latino perspective, it keeps everything that like you would hope in the best of humanity in these
Right.
mutants. You know,
Yeah.
compassion, likeness. You can talk to them. You can be friendly with them, and you may or may not develop emotions for them. That's a whole nother ballpark that we'll get into later. But like, it has every quality that like you hope of. And I, people have said it before that like the X-Men are like the Star Trek of comic books. They are, and how they will show you both sides of how to approach a world that is so hell bent on division, um, um, and just unwillingness to evolve, but not in a species way, but just in a mental philosophical way.
Right.
And we're going all over the place, but I don't care.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good.
Dude.
I just wanted to bring this up. One of the best things that I think this show kind of recaptured it, like part of the whole ideology of X-Men, and like they were made at the time as an allegory for racial tensions in the real world. That's why those characters were created. And small little rabbit trail for anybody complaining that oh, there's not enough diversity in X-Men. Right here in this cast, you have someone from Africa, you have somebody from Canada, you have someone from Germany, somebody from Russia. The list goes on.
Brazil or
Brazil, yeah.
Portugal, yeah.
The one of the biggest strengths of just the X-Men as a core is stated right there in the pilot of the 92 series. It's one of the lines from Rogue where she says to Beast, "What makes us like we are?" And not only is that like just a good line from mutants, but that can also really hit you deep down in the core as a viewer, because it makes you ask yourself, what is it about yourself that makes you who you are? And that is one of the reasons why I think the X-Men are some of the most relatable characters in comic books, despite their fantastic abilities, because they discover themselves. They reach down into their core and find out who they are. You'll have some mutants who want a better life for themselves, but go about it in the wrong way. Some go about it in the right way. Even the debate of right and wrong is really thrown up into the air with those characters. And that's another one of the best things about them is like, even in this show specifically, like there's a kind of a conflict of right and wrong in your head, but it's compelling because you care about the characters and what they're going through.
Yeah. I mean, this dude, Eric Lenscher or Eric Magnus, hot damn, dude. Like, again, you're following in the footsteps of, and just in terms of live action, and we'll give credit to the OG Magneto from the '90s show, but you're following Ian McKellen and Michael Fassbender.
Yes.
Trying to make it your own, make it follow through like what you remember of the '90s show. And again, we talk about lines. There's the line of like, countries don't elect leaders, don't elect criminals as the leaders, and yet so many let their leader behave like criminals. It's just like, like
Yeah.
someone like Like there's that meme of like someone writing something with fire in the pen and whatnot. That
Yeah,
felt hearing those lines, and I'm like, that's on a T-shirt. That's on an office like shelves and whatnot. Like
right.
it is so good. Like were you shocked as I was how much they did with Eric?
To a degree, yeah, because I mean, there are other characters in the series that when you look at how they were done in, say, the movies, for example, the show definitely reinvigorated you for them. Now, the movies never really failed at making Magneto compelling, but it was more so like they carried on, what they had done in the '90s with David Hemblem as Magneto. Rest in
David, yeah.
peace. Yeah, I think Matthew Watterson brought his all into Magneto, made it distinct, but also felt like you were following that same story. So the things that happened are things that you would expect that Magneto to do. And just the line like we brought up earlier, like, don't make me let you down. He wants to be, the person that Xavier thought he could. He wants to be, the thing that can bring the X-Men forward into a better light. He wants to be that for Xavier. And, unfortunately, the world and humanity had other ideas. And that's really one of the biggest things that makes Magneto so compelling as he is. People would call that, falling into a trope. Those tropes only work if the character is as compelling as they are, and Magneto is definitely, definitely one of those. Because, I mean, you really feel for him trying to be a better person, and it's inevitable but still tragic at the same time whenever he goes back into his villainous roots. um you know not only was I surprised with what they did with Magneto, from a story standpoint, but you also got some of the best visuals out of his scenes as well. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, this is another one that I just like. I think of like you get everything, the background, who's behind there, and just the shed of tear of just like, damn it, man! Like you're pushing me to something I'm trying not to do, and yet you're
yeah,
giving me every excuse I need, every reason excuse I need to go over the edge, and just smite the, as he said and whatnot, like with his foot.
yeah.
Um, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, this was the cover to X-Men 200. If I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken,
yep.
um,
Yeah, that's
uh,
200.
this I remember how I was just like, oh my god, this is weird, and in the most sad, depressing metal punk rock way, seeing a shot like that, and then I freaked out because this felt like God loves, man kills shot.
Yeah, yeah, that. And then I don't know if you have a screenshot of it, but of course the very famous Fatal Attractions moment from episode 9, when he is just completely on the villainous side again. Um, some of the shots ripped right from comic panels. You don't see them coming, but when they do, they hit hard.
Dude, I didn't know. I heard that oh this shot, that this sequence of Cyclops landing was right out of X-Men 1 where he did something similar, and I was like, what
Yeah,
the hell? I was like, that is so punk
yeah,
rock, and like it was shocking. Even us hardcore Wolverines and were like, damn, they're doing good by Scott. And just felt. I remember going to WonderCon halfway through the series was out and just seeing all the Cyclops cosplaying, and I was like, "Attaboys, attaboys, y'all
yeah.
got your moment," and they're all
Right.
yelling, "Vindication,
So
vindication!"
when I went to GalaxyCon this past year, there were so many different X-Men cosplayers, and it honestly, it really, it made me feel something special because, I mean, obviously Deadpool and Wolverine was part of that this past year, but this show left a major mark on fans as well. And because you didn't really hear, a lot of X-Men talk outside of the smaller group of people that had watched the movies, because the X-Men films weren't as, as high on the totem pole as films like in the MCU were. So just hearing that the show was getting talked about by really any percentage of people was enough to make somebody like me happy. And like I remember this vividly. I'm walking by this one group at GalaxyCon, and I had, like, in the same group, you had a Wolverine, a Jean Grey, and a Storm all dressed up like they were in that show, and I was just like, "You guys rock! Thank you guys!" And I just kept counting all the X-Men cosplayers I saw. The number kept going up and up. It was a good time.
Yeah, that March was almost like the precursor to the summer of X-Men, the summer of mutants.
Yeah,
Like those 2 months were just like jamming it out and just seeing the art, seeing how much people were just geeking out about this, and like it was the most time I've seen like going to a comic book shop and doing the water cooler talk without having to go outside of my front door and whatnot. And before we go further with characters, stories, what we liked, what we might probably thought there could have been opportunity for improvement, I just want to give a shout out to the writers, and I want to give a shout out to these people from the perspective like they helped create this piece of art that I think will last the testament of time, and it's something that I will take to my grave and will happily show it people. Again, personal stuff I can't speak towards, but I just want to give a shout out to people who were part of this. Obviously, the person who pitched this, who made the Bible of the show, who created it, Bill DeMaio. I want to give a shout out to Jake Costarena, who was the first director and the producer of the whole series. And for writing credits, I want to give a shout out to Charlie Feldman, who I remember being like, that's Screen Junkies. I remember from Screen Junkies.
Yep.
And then Anthony Saletti, JB Ballard, and Matthew Chauncey. I could be wrong, but yeah. If shout out to the writers. I'm gonna give a shout out to Chase Conley, Emi Unimura, Jake String, as I said, who were the directors. Yeah, man. And again, we've kind of known how tough it is to make animated stuff nowadays, and how very tight budget is. And like even behind Disney, I don't know how much stuff was built, but like I think this was a miracle that they pulled off, and they should give themselves a pat on the back almost each day for doing this and creating this stuff.
Yeah, and another kind of shout out that I want to add to your list. The creators of the original series, Eric and Julia Lawad, are consultants for this new
Yes.
series. So the fact that they're the people that are making this current series now, they're going to the ones way up here for things that they're adding in. And
Larry Houston, who helped with the opening credits, and it's like he had the pages of the full sequence of Rogue smashing the Sentinel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When that
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
when the stuff that you're making gets the stamp of approval from these guys up here, you're doing something right.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't met Eric and Julia yet. I want to. I met Larry before, and yeah, that was surreal. To be like, you did the thing I loved as a kid.
Yeah.
Thanks. And they'd be like, "You're welcome, man." And I'd be like, "What the fuck? That's fucking weird."
And it is interesting to kind of see your perspective with them, because they're aware of how like this stuff was not mainstream when they wrote it back in the day. This was not nearly as mainstream as it is now. Fewer people knew about it, and so being able to tell these creative semi-original type stories with these characters that have been around for decades, it's a challenge. It really is.
Yeah, I'll never forget the image of the old Saban logo, yellow, orangey, fading out at the end of each one. Yeah, it's Saturday mornings or Sunday mornings.
I have the chime in my head, man.
Yeah, man. It always even much like in Batman the Animated Series. Whenever I knew the Joker or Two Face were involved, knowing that either Beast, Gambit, Wolverine, or Rogue were involved in the episode, I was like, okay, cool. And like, is Jubilee okay? Okay, cool.
Right.
But yeah, man. Let me ask you this: out of the first 2 episodes, to me, my X-Men, and then Mutant Liberation Begins. Do you have favorite moments, favorite character arc out of all that in the first 2 episodes?
Well, as far as singular moments, this one isn't one moment specifically, but in the first episode, I really liked how structurally it was very similar to the 92 pilot, because you have your character that's being introduced into the world. In the 92 pilot it's Jubilee, in the 97 premiere it's Sunspot, and the X-Men are just reintroduced to your point of view character and the world in very much the same way. Because like your character's walking around there and you see the X-Men just pop up, and to the viewer it's like so casual, And even in the perspective of the characters, it's casual. You see Beast doing the backflips, being very kind and sincere. You see
Salutations or whatever. Yeah.
you see Wolverine and Gambit in the danger room again, and just like you saw back then, you see Cyclops going at it with the Sentinel. It's like one-to-one imagery. So there were definitely some great parallels in there for people who knew the original source material and were familiar with it. And then as far as just cinematic moments, obviously you have the shot where the team lands that they had in all the marketing. Classic stuff there. And they give you one of the most memorable X-Men lines right there, yet a movie watcher would have never heard it. That's how crazy that is. Then of course you get that moment in I think it's episode 2 where you hear you say you hear Storm say to Cyclops, give them the forecast, and it's like that type of stuff. Sure, it might sound like 90s camp to some of the people who aren't familiar with it, but it fits in this world so well, and yet doesn't feel like it's an outdated statement. And I'm trying to think. Probably one of the funniest moments, probably the single funniest moment from the entire series, I think, came from the second episode where you have, Jean, Madeline, going into labor. And then she says, hey, he's coming. And Wolverine panics. Apocalypse? That probably made me laugh more than any moment in the series. And it was just, man, it's hard to pick out singular moments because, a lot of them are really good, but also they all blend together so well. So it's hard to pick out singular moments.
I don't think it's one of my favorites. I do love it a lot, but I remember being like, I need to speak to the X-Men. Jean.
Yeah.
And being like, wait a minute. And for those who didn't know, I was lucky to see it a little bit early because I was covering it for media outlets. And so I was just like, wait a minute. And then we had to start the next one afterwards. And I was like, wait a minute. Because again, my knowledge is based off the original show and the movies. And I've read a lot of the comics, but I haven't fully done all the work at that time. And so, but I was like, wait a minute. I was like, Cable. And I remember seeing the shot of Madeline in the middle where they recreated the X-Men 100 shot. From the cover. And I'm like, wait a minute. There was somebody else that looked like Jean that looked sexy as hell. And I'm like, I was like, wait a minute. And then when they kept teasing Sinister again, I remember looking at Samuel Leggett, and being like, are they gonna do what I think they're gonna do? And we did a horrible job. Busy could attest to this. Vanessa could attest to this. Of us just be like, we know what's happening and we know what they're implying. And it's just like in an episode, they told the Goblin Queen story and how just like sad and tragic that led up to it. But I remember being like, this was a big shot of just like dun dun dun, and the fact that like people who weren't at the premiere had to wait a week to be like, what does that mean? And just like that was a great hook to be like, shit went down. Oh, by the way, Charles is gone, and he left this guy in charge of his X-Men, and almost as a challenge to be like, let's see if we can do it. Let's see if you can't fuck it up more than stuff is already. I think another one that like was like, again, much like Madeline Pryor, I had just heard the legend stuff, and I was just like, is this true? Was a shot like this, and be like, and I'm like, holy shit! I know.
Oh, they're doing it.
I'm like, now I know what my abuela and what my mom go through with their novellas growing up. I was just like, I had that moment with these first 2 episodes and be like, damn, now I'm going through my novella phase. I'm like, what the fuck? But yeah, man, I think to me, first few episodes, I love the Sentinel stuff and just like
that shot right there, man.
Also, shout out the Newton Brothers.
Yes.
Newton Brothers, the music they brought in, honoring the original composer, of the animated series. The work they had done in Doctor Sleep, the work they're doing now in Daredevil Born Again. You know,
Yep.
hearing that as Oro walks across the desert and crystallizing the sand, just beautiful, beautiful pieces of art. And I wish they made the soundtrack on CD.
Those guys, they followed up Ron Wasserman's work in a phenomenal way.
Yeah.
And not only that, the intro itself, you know, we'll get into this more in a little bit, I'm sure. It kept changing episode to episode based on what characters were in it versus not in it. Adding other characters in, adding other shots through the montage. Because for episode 1, they took the intro from the old cartoon and just translated it point to point. It was that old intro that everybody knew, and I thought they were going to maybe include some shots from the final few episodes of the original run to maybe catch people up, but no, they didn't. And then you see in episode 2, with what goes down there. My first thought watching it is like, wait, they included some Dark Phoenix shots in the intro. There's a reason for that. And then every intro onward, even if it's. So say even if you're not someone who's trying to analyze it shot by shot to try and figure something out, the intro is just such a banger. You never want to skip it.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking of not skipping, another X-Men of I consider my group of X-Men entering the danger room. Lance, Party Nation Geek Drums. How you doing, bro?
What's up, Lance?
What's up?
Dude, it's been a year since this joint dropped.
I know, right? That is insane.
Crazy.
Yeah,
we're all getting old.
I did not I didn't even think about that today. It's been a year, and this show was amazing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did that move, or did my camera move?
It's probably the ghost of X-Men past.
Yeah, I was about to say. I think Bastion might be taking over your equipment.
Don't want to show my mother-in-law on the stream if I don't have to.
Right on.
Only if you don't have to.
Right on. But yeah, it's I remember, us being like, it's a fun vibe when you're reading a show or taking a show and you're like trying to show what storyline are they gonna do. I'm like, well, they can't keep doing the Phoenix thing all over again, even though they kept teasing it.
Right.
I'm like,
what villain? Whole season doing that story before.
I'm like, what villain have they not used yet that they're letting setting up and whatnot?
I forgot. My kid was in here and she had computer homework yesterday. So there we go.
Gotcha.
She was in here touching stuff. Yeah.
But no, I was happy they really went down the story route that they did, because I love Cable. Is one of my favorite mutants, one of my favorite comic characters, period. So the way that they went down that story route, it is one of my favorite stories that they ever tell. And the way that they mixed, the whole Goblin Queen side of it into things, I was like, okay, yes, it's like you guys cooked with gas and you were on a roll.
Yeah. I remember being like, wow, they're going full throttle, and I don't know where they're going. And it's been a while since I felt that. I'm like trying to put the pieces together, not trying to run to comic shop and be like, okay, what else am I missing? This is the 90s, 80s. What other thing am I missing that they haven't touched yet? They're like Sinister, they're hinting at that. And
another thing the movie's ignored.
Yeah, oh man, that whole thing. Shout out to Jeffrey. Hey, Keyblade, Jeffrey.
What's up, Jeffrey?
But yeah, Lance, so you can talk about the whole series if you want, season or the first 2 episodes. Was there a character or a moment or an episode that you were like, man, I can't believe they did this, and this was up right up my alley of what I wanted to see in terms of the X-Men?
Honestly, oh wow, I'm on the big screen. I feel important. Honestly, when it came to in terms of X-Men 97, the episode that I thoroughly enjoyed, that's one of my favorites, is the one where Gambit sacrifices his life.
Yeah.
That episode was it's that episode, and it's the one where Jubilee and that was Sunspot, right? Sunspot.
Yep.
Where they get like sucked into the video game.
Oh yeah.
that episode was a favorite of mine. Like just starting the series off, and we're like, oh, boom, Magneto's leading the X-Men. What? And then we cannot. Like, I have too many, because then we can't forget when Magneto finally like just lost it and took all the the adamantium out of Wolverine.
Yeah.
But then the moments before, like I reshared the clip on my TikTok, on my Instagram, all social media, because we legitimately saw Wolverine impale somebody in a cartoon.
Draw blood for the first time in this universe.
We saw them draw blood for the first time in this universe on Disney Plus, bro. Like I didn't expect to see that.
Yeah.
And like seeing that, like that made me know like that we would be okay when it comes to things in animation, because then, you know, it makes me fast forward to just this past March. We turn around and we saw Scorpion impaling people, and we saw blood. X-Men 97 paved the way. It paved the way for that. Like it's too many moments just to be able to pinpoint my favorite. Like, yeah, it's too many to just say, oh yeah, this is the one I like. This is the one. Like, it's just too many, because X-Men 97 is a goated show. One of the greatest animated series that they have released on Disney Plus, like, in a long time, honestly. In a long time. Like this not Winter Soldier. What If doesn't hold a candle to this. Like, like how, wow. Like I'm mad we gotta wait a whole nother year, like this entire year, to get to season 2, but I know they cooking. I know they cooking. I know they cooking.
Yeah.
It's hard to pick one moment because all the stuff just blends together.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone who has been cooking, who's a favorite of mine, and it was a blast to, like, as the show was coming out, talk to him about it. And at points, even in streams, we had to be like, okay, we can't talk about it because people haven't seen it. And it's like, fuck, we want to get into the spoilers. But is another member of my X-Men, Chainsaw Reacts. How you doing, Chainsaw?
Who the fuck?
Oh, look at you, fresh cut and everything.
Yeah, I told the barber, like, I just cut off the excess. I'm growing this shit out. Mountain Man.
Look at you.
I know. I was actually gonna ask a stupid question. I'm like, why are we talking X-Men? Like, oh yeah, the 1 year anniversary. Oh, okay. I'm like, why are we talking about this? Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Because it's good. I'm just kidding.
Woke trash.
Good. That's the only reason you need. It's good.
It's good.
Dude, we again, and I told this to Jake, and I think I said the lines, like, I had a feeling it'd be good. It's got Mickey Mouse's money behind it. Like, they have to go out of the way to like wreck it up.
Yeah.
I didn't expect it to come in swinging and saying, "Oh, the movie you're making, good luck." Like, you gotta follow
good
us. You gotta follow us now.
Uh-huh.
How are your thoughts a year later after taking in the series, and what are your thoughts with this new iteration of the mutants, Chainsaw?
Me. I think you're right. Like, we weren't prepared for what they were actually going to accomplish. I don't know if it's actually been said yet, but we have to give credit where credit is due, regardless of the allegations and stuff. Bo DeMeo, crushed it in his writing, right? Like, you have to admit, like, he
was trying to crush some other things too.
Oh,
Apparently.
yeah. But in terms of the credit, he nailed a fucking amazing story bringing the show back. It's insane how well it is, because we weren't expecting it to be amazing. We were just expecting it to be good, or hoping it to be good, not as good as it got. So I will have to say it is astonishing what they pulled off here, and to bring back so many things. People were just like, they're referencing that, they're doing that, they're pulling. Like, of course they are. If you've watched the original 90s, they did a bunch of stuff, callbacks and stuff that really made sense. So it makes sense that this basically sequel is going to continue that same path. Now, what they're going to do with season 2 and 3 and beyond that, who knows? But in terms of what they accomplished for this first 10 episodes was fantastic. It was so good. I loved pretty much every second of it. Like, there's certain moments, certain episodes not as amazing as the other ones, but everything kind of made sense. Like, to me, I think the Jubilee episode with the video game thing, I understand the retro and kind of the meta aspect of it, because of course the video games around that time of the franchise, the weakest episode, but it's still really fun. And it's like, okay, they found a way to bring back, the original Rogue voice actress and everything, or not Rogue, Jubilee. And I thought that was really smart for them to do in that way. So I really applaud them for pulling it off. And here's hoping the way they tease season 2, man. I mean, not even talk about the different times, like where they're all spread out throughout time. Just the fact that Apocalypse is back. Oh, like that is just that's something I was probably thinking maybe season 3 if we get there. They're going to take their time. I was honestly expecting Onslaught as well, which I think we're still getting that at some point. I feel like they're going to do that as a culmination event.
Oh yeah.
For this show, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get Iron Man, Fantastic Four, Avengers, Spider-Man, all of that stuff in the 90s continuity bringing into. I wouldn't be surprised if they do that within this show, because that's what the comic run was. They brought everybody together to go against Onslaught. I'm not saying they will, but man, they teased it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
yeah.
And
So
we saw all those characters back in the day too. Like they had their own series, so it's not like they.
That's what I'm saying. Like they've already the groundwork's already there for them to do Onslaught as I think a whole season. You have to do a whole season of that. You can't do like a 3-episode arc. No, this has to be like, I think season 2 is going to lay the groundwork for Onslaught to come in maybe season 3. Yeah. And maybe that's the culmination. Maybe that's why they've already announced season 3, because they've already have the groundwork laid out. Mm-hmm. And Kevin Feige, he's a big comic fan. So he knows that storyline, and they'll never be able to do that in the movies. The movies will never be able to do it.
No.
So do it here, because you've already established in 97 alone, Daredevil, right? You show him again. You show Captain America, Iron Man. You show Peter Parker. You have freaking is it more Dagger? Is it more for Forge? Which one? I get the names mixed up all the time. He turns into the Hulk at one point.
Morph.
Yeah. So So he turns into the Hulk at one point, kind of teasing that. So it's like they're already like kind of resetting us back into that motion. Yeah, right. Like even if you don't watch or have seen the 90s stuff, you're missing out. But if you just watch 97, they've already laid the groundwork for a bunch of other heroes outside of the continuity of X-Men that are there that you can do.
Yeah. Not just heroes, but other locations. Like, you see Latveria along with Doom. You see Comertage along with Strange. You see Wakanda. You see all those other places that are part of the world.
I really do think that it's all setting up, not like other shows returning, but this is like, this show is going to become more than just X-Men. Like it's the focus is X-Men, but I think they're going to be, Apocalypse, I understand he's an X-Men villain, but he's more than that. Yeah. So you could bring in these other heroes to fight on like Onslaught or Apocalypse. You can do all this stuff and it would make sense continuity wise, because they've already established it in 97 in small little pockets, and go back to the 90s shows. And you can see like even Spider-Man, like the freaking Secret Wars arc.
Yeah, they brought all of them in there because the whole threat with Doom and everybody else, they brought in the X-Men, the Fantastic Four,
they showed
Man, Captain America.
Yeah,
they showed Doom before the MCU's live action did it, and it just like,
yep. And what you were talking about too, to do that Onslaught story as like its whole season, it would be just like how they did the Dark Phoenix story in the original series, because they went all across that third season, which was the longest one. They did 5 episodes of Phoenix, and then over the course that you saw little hints of it, and then you got a 5-episode Dark Phoenix arc. They took their time with that stuff, and they didn't just rush it into 2 or 3 episodes like what you got in the movies, where they just jumbled the story together. And Onslaught is definitely something you cannot do in the movies.
What they should do, just throwing it out there, hypothetically, season 3 is Onslaught. Do 10 episodes. The culmination is a special that culminates the story. Give it like an hour, 15 hour, 20 conclusion film that takes place after the events of season 3 that concludes I think that'd be the way to go. I mean,
ideally,
I can see that.
And you can do that now, whereas before it would have just been like a 30-minute episode of TV.
Yeah. I mean, the only reason why I'm saying that is because look at the final fight between Onslaught and Hulk lasts for days on end, and finally Onslaught dies. So you would have to really like draw that out to show how long they were fighting.
Yeah.
Because you can't rush that. Because no pacing, that's the biggest thing.
And
Yeah.
if it's paced right, you feel the impact. Because if it's all just like wrapped up quick, then you're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that happened. It's over. Okay, on to the next thing.
Yeah,
If you pace that stuff out, you feel the impact, and you let those moments sit.
and the way that story ends, a lot of characters die in the process. So who do they kill off, and how do they move forward? Right? Like who in the X-Men roster alone dies that we won't be able to see come back unless we do some time travel, which they shouldn't. I know they're going to bring Gambit back. I know, but have some long-lasting deaths within this universe, in this continuity. I think that would be really. And I think they are, because I think the whole explosion with the giant Sentinel, besides Gambit, I think a lot of those mutants, like they're lesser known, but they're dead. They're gone. You'll never see them again.
Yeah, like Banshee, McTaggart, those guys are gone. Like
Dazzler.
And
they're
they
gone.
were, and for the people who saw the original series, they could look at those characters and go, oh, hey, yeah, it's you. But somebody who didn't see it, they won't have to go, wait, what? Who are you? Like, what's this whole thing? You didn't have to dive into that character to know what was going to happen, because inevitably they were dead at the end of the episode anyways.
Yeah.
But it was just more kind of icing on the cake for the people familiar with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Key Blade Master Jeffrey says Magneto was right. He had some point. He had some points. Bring back original Spider-Man series at some point. This has been the talk out of as soon as it ended. I'm like, hey, we could do it for X-Men. And they already teased it like, yo, MJ's back. He did it. And I just like,
And somebody up at Marvel, not Kevin Feige, was like, maybe, which, like that's what you say when asking a question. But if this does well,
yeah.
I mean, like with how well this is done, they're probably already thinking, okay, we'll do Spider-Man at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Cameron Walker brings up a point that I'm so happy that, like, in a way that I think it hit for him. I'm assuming that, like, he didn't grow up with or didn't see X-Men Taz, but like got into 97, and that's I told Jake that, like, that's a tough thing to do, of like something new yet a continuation, and that anybody can follow through and not get lost.
Yeah.
The closest I've seen that done in a different manner was with Mando season 1. It's like a new story, but there's plenty of stuff in the foreground and background that, like, if you've been following with us, you might know where my stuff might lead to. And if you're new, here's something new you can learn about the world of the galaxy far, far away. Missing out, Cameron original show was amazing. Yeah, go back and watch it. I mean, so I've heard people saying, like, now it's a little bit dainty, it's nice and whatnot, but like you have to also take into account that, like, and go read the making of that show and the art of those books. Tell you a whole lot of like the budgets were tight.
Extremely.
They had to redo stuff at points, which at some points you can notice they're using similar shots or cells for a sequence and whatnot. But like that's an example of like squeezing as much as you can out of a tight budget and yet having gold and an impact, so much so that like I'm willing to, Chris Claremont did put out an outline to help the first X-Men movie get up off of his feet, but like they were falling on the steps of this show to the point. I think I remember hearing Cal, he always tells the story of like when he met up with you and be like telling him like, mate, I'm sick and tired of hearing your voice, and being like, everybody wants me to do your X-Men, your Wolverine voice and whatnot. So you can see that the lasting impact that those few seasons of the show got out of. So I wasn't born yet when X-Men series came out. I'm like, I get it. I get it. Yeah.
Also, another thing to kind of check out, it's on, I just verified on YouTube again, the entirety of the original pilot Pride of the X-Men, like what this based off. Like, it's still on YouTube now to watch the entirety. So you get to see the original concept of the show that kind of built off of that and then went its own direction, but still had a lot of similar things they were attempting to do there.
I like that pilot as well. Like to me,
the pilot was basically a proof of concept.
And they based the game, the main beat 'em up game about like almost the same characters, same designs. Like I have a piece of this art that I'm like, I would love if down the line via time travel, why not just showcase this team, this squad. I don't know if it's gold team or blue team, but like just show this version of the squad once. But don't do the Australian Wolverine, please. Don't do that.
That was
Yeah.
a childhood game of mine that you just showed up there on the screen. It was always funny because like you would get a group of people together, and often the person who kind of drew the short straw in the group was the person who ended up getting stuck as Dazzler, just because that was the connotation the character had around her at the time.
Oh, I love Dazzler.
I wish you could download those games off the PSN store now, but you no longer can. So
yeah,
emulator.
Emulator. Yep.
Yeah. There, when you said Australian Wolverine, that reminds me. There's an episode of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends.
Yep.
And it's Firestar and Iceman, obviously, and Spider-Man.
Yep.
They go to the Xavier Mansion because they're having some sort of get together because Firestar used to be an X-Men. I'm like, okay, Firestar. And then we have this whole side plot where Juggernaut's running around.
Yep.
And it's a whole thing. And then you hear Wolverine and that accent. I'm like, oh. But then the main thing is Juggernaut, right? I am the Juggernaut. I'm like, I'm sure you are.
I will be your doom.
Yeah, I will be your doom. Just a way.
And the animation of Wolverine like getting thrown to the camera and you see the claws sticking out.
Oh yeah.
It's
Well,
priceless.
there's also too the part where they keep using the same like growl yell that he did.
Yeah.
He just kept, and then I think he was making that noise when he turned into the Juggernaut when they showed the brief backstory of finding the gym. He's like, I'm like,
yeah.
All right.
It was a lot of recycling resources.
It is 80s fucking magic Marvel. That's what it was. It is so like 80s for sure. And that's why, going back to the whole point of like Sadie Sink, like, look, everyone's like, oh, she's gonna be a redhead. I would love Firestar. I would love to. I want the character in the MCU, please.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Something different.
I'm about it.
I want to see that dynamic between her, Spider-Man, and Iceman.
Yeah, so like them announcing that she's in the movie, I'm like, are they gonna do Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends? Can you imagine? But I think it's gonna be multiversal. But whatever she's doing, hey, could she be? Wait, what's the female? Like, there's a female version of Peter Parker. What's her name?
Oh wait, no.
Like she's actually Peter Parker, but she's just a girl Peter Parker.
I think like Petra or something weird.
Yeah, Petra. She could be Petra Parker.
Yeah. Maybe.
I mean, because everyone's like, "Oh, she's the daughter, Toby." Like, stop. What if she's just a multiversal Spider-Man that is literally Peter, but Petra or whatever?
And just because the actress is, has red hair, doesn't mean she's going to be playing a redhead. Because Emma Stone has red hair. Was she playing a redhead in the Spider-Man movies? No.
Yeah. So, at that time, yeah.
Ridiculous.
So I want to say this because I want to start teasing a little bit of like where we might be going besides Onslaught, whatnot. One of the big shots of this season was Ford's looking at that map.
Oh yes,
yeah.
And then if lucky, I think people pointed out who was available, whether not off-world or dead, was these people. These were the people that were around and whatnot.
Yeah.
Go back to that first picture. Which, like, I wonder who he's covering up below Professor X. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's covering somebody. Anyways, I would just notice that. Interesting.
Yeah. I think all of these characters, with the exception of maybe like one, were featured in the 90s cartoon at some point. I think the only one that might not have been was Exodus, but I think everyone else was.
Was Shadowcat
actually
in the 90s?
No, Kitty Pryde was not. No.
Okay. So, this might be their time to finally bring her in.
Yeah. It could be because they showed Colossus for a few episodes. Yep. Obviously Emma Frost with all the Hellfire Club stuff. Bobby, I know, had that one episode. I can't remember if Ilyana was shown in the original cartoon or not. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I bet a number of those people are going to pop up in season 2 for sure.
I hope so.
Because with the X-Men gone, they got to bring in other mutants to kind of basically figure this shit out because there's like they're gone, right? And how do you even go about trying to find them, right? Like that's the thing. So
go through hell to see if they're there and whatnot.
Yeah.
Lance, you see this graphic of this new team. Is there like an immediate like 3 or 4 that you're like, all right, that's blue team or that's gold team that you're like, I want to see that dynamic play? Because easily, I would go with Shadowcat, Colossus, and Magic. That's already like the family that's already being made because you know how much Kitty and Peter have stuff for themselves. And like I've been wanting to see if they go almost an astonishing-esque route now that the main gold and blue team are out, and just seeing how that dynamic and the fact that there's an OG member still available in Iceman, and then Emma Frost got her second mutation.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see that dynamic. And what do you think with this? These remaining available mutants.
Well, for me personally, my mind immediately goes to Colossus and Magic, but not because of this. My mind is going to them because in the Ultimate Universe, they're currently evil right now.
Yeah.
But when you just showed the graphic, it made me think about it like they would be right next to each other, little evil bastards controlling Logan. Making Logan the Winter Soldier in the Ultimate Universe, little evil bastards. But no, I'd immediately, Forge is making this new team, yada yada yada. I've always been a diehard Iceman fan. He was my favorite character in the original films. It's just something. It's something about peculiar powers like that, like something with like super speed or like ice that have always like intrigued me. Like if I had any power, that would be it. Like either ice or speed, or combination of both.
Ooh,
Speedy Frost.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Speedy Frost.
But, like the go-to team would have to be Colossus, Iceman, Bishop because he was working with the X-Men, of course. Shadowcat because they could possibly say she was a part of the team when she was younger. I don't trust. I inherently do not trust Emma Frost. I just don't because of especially after Wolverine and the X-Men. I don't. I will never trust Emma Frost like ever in anything. I'll never trust it. But yeah, those would be my go-tos. Possibly, and then like, I mean, like I wouldn't even make Forge like the leader. Like, you're still a simp, like bro. You were trying to get Storm cheeks while she trying to get her powers back, bro. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing for real?
Forge was going to be her Lord of Chaos.
He was definitely trying.
Storm cheeks.
He was.
The new one.
Oh man.
What about you, Phil? What about you, Jordan or Jake? You look at this squad. Is there something that like sticks out to you? Like again, for me, I have now that I've read more comics, Kitty has a special place in my heart, the same way Jubilee does. But how you look at Havoc, Dust, Exodus, Emma Frost, Forge? You know, Lance saying he doesn't want him as the leader. Like, how do you see this lineup now?
I personally think Iceman has to be a part of it. I think Havoc's a good choice. But I mean, at this point, Shadowcat has to pop up because we've not seen her before in this continuity. Of course, she was in the title of the freaking original, like as pilot
of the X-Men,
Yeah, so I think we need to have Shadowcat. Like that's the one. If we had to pick, but I think Iceman, since he is a popular character, like bring him in, like have him be a part of like the new team that basically has to figure out what's going on with the X-Men and stuff. Because he's really important, right, to the overall story of the X-Men. I mean, he was one of the original members, right, back in the day. So
back in the 60s.
Yeah, so do it. Bring him in.
What about you, Jake?
So for me, can you throw the thing up again? For these members here, I think Iceman and Shadowcat do need to be key parts of it, because obviously Shadowcat, like we said, was missing from the original series, and did not have the biggest role in the films. And I think this could definitely be, voice for her to get her due. But I also think, I want to give a little bit of a mention to Havoc because of how Summers focused season 1 was. I think that would be a great time to bring Havoc in because, you got all the stuff between, Scott, Jean, Madeline, and Cable, and bringing Havoc into that, could maybe feel like, retreading a little bit of old ground with the Summers drama, but could bring in a new layer to it because, you got all of the, the Corsair Starjammers stuff in the original series, showing Scott and his father and, kind of completing that, that piece of his layering, if you want to call it. Havoc could be a great way to do that. And then, bringing, I think both Colossus and Iceman, because they were in a few episodes of the original series, but they were not by any means main players. And, it's kind of like what they did to Nightcrawler in season 1. He wasn't a big player in the original show either, but he had a significant role in the back half of this season. I think if they did something similar to Colossus and Cyclops to show that they were, still there and still active, then that would definitely be a good route to take, because, they are, two of the more popular characters out of the ones that are shown. But really, I mean, one of the best things season 1 did was, like introducing you to all these characters and just building out more of the world, making it feel more alive. And really, by introducing any amount of these characters, it would accomplish the same thing.
Yeah. I'm really, really fascinating how much these characters can be involved and how much now, dare I say, guilt will be around, T'Chaka, Rogers, Stark, and being like,
yeah,
these were our friends who we were right now willing to blow up to hell, and how it's been, I think, a few years since Extinction Day, I think as they called it, and how the second coming of Magneto is on the rise, and yeah, I'm very intrigued to see that,
especially Captain America, because of his like unwillingness to get involved in all the affairs and things like that. He probably feels a bit of guilt, I imagine.
Yeah, besides President Kelly in that finale, he was the one that like had no mask on. He just looked away and be like this is not the right thing to do. It's the only it's the choice that everybody's agreed to, but like he felt like this ain't the way. There's got to be a better way. How are we feeling about like where we might see the main roster onwards? Because I feel like, to me, I was jokingly the other day telling you guys that like, okay, Eric and Marie are stuck in the desert with Absalom and Noah. How the hell is that dynamic gonna go onwards now that like they're teasing that like, oh, Remy, we might not have seen the last of Remy with Apocalypse holding out his card of like so much death.
Yeah.
Oh, of course he's coming back as Death. Of course he is.
Oh,
he's
yeah.
gonna be all
100%.
Gonna be all black and creepy looking, and then he's gonna see Eric.
Why is he gonna be black?
Well, because Death is black.
No, I thought Lance was gonna give the other reason. Anyway, but I don't know. I was thinking of this because for anybody who doesn't know, Apocalypse, of course, had a significant role in the original series, and there was that whole story where Rogue sought out a potential cure for her abilities at the time. She got manipulated by that doctor who was pretending to be Mystique, working with Apocalypse. So Apocalypse definitely had an impact on Rogue's character in that original run, and it would be a pretty climactic way to bring that back around, with now, him essentially controlling Gambit's fate and bringing him back as this, soulless horseman. That would definitely create a lot of drama there. And, say just, from a tinfoil hat, say Mystique gets brought back into the fold somehow, some way, could potentially create a lot of drama there too. And, it would be kind of a thing with Magneto, because they, obviously there's a connection with Magneto and Rogue. There wasn't one shown between Magneto and Mystique as much in the original cartoon, but definitely with characters like Magneto and Apocalypse, something akin to what they could do would be something like what you saw in X-Men Evolution, to where like the X-Men don't typically work with Magneto, but when something greater like Apocalypse is there, they'll do it when they have to. And from like an outward kind of meta standpoint, you look at Magneto and Apocalypse as two, kind of levels of power. And I think even as they call it in that series, higher evolutionaries, no pun intended to the character there, but they could do a sort of, story like that to where they're on to that, higher Omega level type scale. But then you would also get a lot of interpersonal drama with Rogue if they pay all that stuff off from the original series.
Yeah, and I think even in God Loves, Man Kills, they had to team up with Eric because they had taken Scott, Aurora, and Charles away.
Because they had no leaders.
Stryker. Yeah, and then I forget her name with the glasses, who was the liaison for the X-Men and who confronted Eric. And how people kept saying that she might be Mystique. after all this time.
Oh,
I forget her name, but like
God.
I'm wondering if that angle's gonna be played out.
Valerie Cooper.
There we go.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to think for a second.
Yeah, I wonder if that story's gonna be played out more. If Roberto's parents might have that angle play out with him, I think being one of the ones away and just seeing. There's so much potential onwards. Like that's the crazy part that I'm like, okay, we went through this first season. How do you push it without just going big for the sake of going big? And I hope that goes into the writing that's being worked on, and I hope that goes into the music. That I hope that the new brothers are coming back. They gotta come back.
Yeah, I'm assuming they are.
Yeah.
There is kind of a story thread that I just want to throw out there. I mean, and
Go for it.
It could be.
I might catch it.
Be reaching. It could be. Not anything at all. You're running. I'll send you these two pictures if you want to pull either of these up. But you've got kind of the big theory as to like who.
Oh my goodness, a big.
The X-Men across time, and the common theory out there is Apocalypse because of what was teased at the end. I've said this all the way since we did that stream on that guy down there's channel. Ever since we did that, where
which one, the black one or the not black one?
That's not the word he would have used, but yeah,
I didn't say it. But no, I mean, so because of how Summers focused season 1 was, and because of this character being shown in the original series, although not in a speaking role, just visually, I'm speculating that a big player in season 2 could potentially be Strife, because obviously season 1 focused a lot on Cable, and you see that shot there from the 4th season of the original series. It's a little blurry there, but Strife is in the back there in that void with all of those other characters, and that was the only time you ever saw him in that series. But because of how prominent of a character he is when compared to Nathan Summers, and the whole time travel aspect of it all that this first season ended with, I'm just throwing it out there that he could potentially be either a main player or the main player for that side of the story, and why they were all spread across time in that way. Will it happen? Unlikely, but I'm just throwing it out there.
I would not be shocked, and I would start laughing. I'm like, holy shit, Jake called it all that time ago. I'm like, this dude's showing up, because again, deep cuts they pulled with this one. Like, I wasn't too familiar with Sebastian and hearing that, but thankfully at that time I was also watching Coy Genre's coverage, and he was just telling me, oh, you got this. It's Apocalypse goes to this, and I'm just like, fuck, man. I thought for sure they had used all up the well, and we're gonna reuse some of the big villains and some of the same storylines that the movies and the shows had done previously. It's like, okay, what else can we do that is fresh but is still relevant to what the materials had been brought up for the past 80 years, 90 years? Jesus.
Well, it's interesting because they have a lot of stories that are not set within the timeline of the show that they could still pull from, which they kind of have already done in the 97. So it makes sense to find those things that make sense continuity wise, but then make some shift for it to kind of fit here narratively. I'm pretty sure, I don't know. I'm pretty sure at one point during the 90s original run, they had an idea of like wanting to do Onslaught, but they just probably didn't have the time, because that comic came out in the mid 90s around the time when the show was airing. So all this time later, they now have an opportunity to do something like that, or to pull from comics that came out after the show ended, that they can, if it makes sense continuity and timeline wise, they could pull it into this if it makes sense, or pull little things. That's what the MCU does. It takes comic storylines and adapts them, but or pulls certain elements to make it fit. That's what they do. So the fact that the show could do that is good, and they should do that, because we're not asking for an original story. Sure, it'd be interesting, but they don't have to. Like, the 90s show really didn't do that. Like, they set their own continuity and foundation, but they were pulling from shit that's already been done in the comics or similar aspects. And it works in the comics, so they can do it here too. And that's completely fine. I think this whole narrative, like, oh, well, they're going to pull back. Yeah, I understand. Like, they're going to pull and bring an Apocalypse back in season 2. They're going to do this, this, and this. But I love the fact that even though they're reusing characters or bringing in characters we know from the comics and they really haven't touched them before, or maybe they have, as long as they give me something that's interesting, something that I can grab on and enjoy, that's all I really care about. This whole narrative that, it's got to be original storytelling. It's got to be something new. I don't want familiarity. I don't like that notion because it's like, okay, so you want everything new and nothing, reusable or anything that you may remember. Because actually, I think when you pull from comics and storylines that have already been done, or when they do callbacks in 97 from the 90s, it actually makes the show and storylines better.
Yeah.
Depending on how it's handled. So, yeah, I'm fine with that,
Yeah, especially because there's so much comic material that the movies haven't covered. So there's a lot of different angles they could pull from because, Magneto was the villain of almost all of those live action projects. So there's still a lot of villains they could cover. They could do Apocalypse better. You could get into characters like Sinister, which the show's already done a little bit. Pull from the original 90s series and several comics. Do characters like the Shadow King. Characters like Strife, like I mentioned. They already did a character like Bastion who came out or who appeared first in comics like when the original show only had like a year left to go. So he was relatively new around that time. So, there's a whole lot of, new stuff, I guess, if you want to call it, just because it hasn't really been attempted yet. But also, you don't have to just rip off that one story. You can also combine different elements of those other stories to make your own. So that's a way that you can make it feel fresh.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. Like, I think to me, it was the Genosha. People were saying, is this Cassandra Nova? They're going to do Cassandra Nova? It's like, no, the movie, Deadpool Wolverine are doing that.
Yeah.
We're going to do something else and whatnot. That, like, again, much like a lot of these great, I don't even say great, but like good adaptations that take something like, for example, Civil War. You can't use at that time all those characters and whatnot, but the essence, what it was talking about, the ideas it was presenting to us with the characters in play that we had been building up for at that point 8 years, they were able to tell that story in their perspective. The book is still there. So if you like that story, the book is still there that you can revisit as many times as you want. But it's cool to shake things up and give it its own funk and whatnot.
Yeah, and the impact is still the same at the end of the day.
Yeah. Someone who I know this show had an impact on for a bit is a friend of ours, Darren. What's up, man?
Hello.
Oh.
I hate this show. Oh, it's the worst.
They ruined my childhood.
Even though I wasn't born yet.
How are you doing, guys?
What's up, Darren?
Offended.
By what?
You were on Party Nation Tuesday, and now you're here. But Wednesday, you're like, fuck that council bullshit.
Yeah. It landed on the worst time because they came over yesterday and they left just hours ago. So it came
good
just in
cover
time to skip yours.
Good cover.
No cover.
Good
I did it on
cover.
purpose. I did it on purpose just for I would miss council. That's exactly
Oh,
what
it
came
was
over.
planned.
As everybody should.
Yeah.
It was planned.
Oh,
Yeah. I get it.
Man, do you two need a room to hash this out?
Well, I'm just gonna send him a voice message and be done with him.
Yeah.
there it is.
I understand that reference.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Darren, it's been a year. Like I told these guys, let the people know what this show meant to them. Maybe speak on your connection to the X-Men and just like how a year afterwards, how do you feel about this piece of art now being out for the public?
No, I mean, I think that journey through that show was such a fun one because it may have not have come out when I was a kid, but it was, I think, one of my first superhero projects I ever watched was that original X-Men show. It really is what got me into comic books and superheroes, or at least was that first step getting there. But like when that show was announced, like it was really hard to get excited because we didn't know exactly what it was going to do, what it would be like. As much as I had a nostalgia for that show, it wasn't like one of my favorite shows of all time or anything. And I think this show did such a good job at obviously being a sequel show to that show, which it does a really good job at being, but also I think taking everything that worked from that show, taking some of the stuff out that didn't work, and adding new elements that I think makes it one of my favorite shows of all time. Like, since in this year that has like since it's aired, I've been like debating. I was like, is this one of my favorite seasons of TV ever? Just like every week being able to have that experience of talking about the show, about theorizing, having that intro play, which with every episode being like, wait, was that person? Did they just add this? Is this going to lead to this thing later on? And I think that community around the show and the hype around the show, like, I think very fondly on the giant chainsaw stream that we did, just talking about the end of that show and being like everyone being so passionate about like, man, we're gonna miss this show. It's crazy. It's been a year because like as much as I want it to be back now, it's been a year. I wanted to be back. I also understand it's a big schedule, a lot of controversy. I want them to take their time and make it the best show they can possibly be. But no, it's definitely, I think it might be my second favorite season of TV, next to like the Flash season 1, looking back on it.
Oh, yeah. I think I put this project up there across the MCU, across superhero related stuff and television, in my opinion. Like, it is tough to be like, yeah, man, there's a lot of great other shows and movies, but I can quote this out the wazoo. And without skipping a beat. Like, what's one that hits me right now is
Evolution thrives in darkness. That's one that hits.
Yeah, toleration is extinct.
Me let you down.
Yeah, let them weather your power, sister. Whatever. When Aurora had that moment.
Let them weather your mind. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I have one. I have a good one.
Oh, no. Let's hear it.
It was the scene where Gambit walked up and heard Magneto and Rogue talking, and Magneto was like, "Yeah, you remember when I gave you that metal, daddy?"
What?
I never saw this episode of What If. That's one episode of What If I didn't see.
Was that in the director's cut? What happened?
On the Rogue side of it.
Another director's cut episode was blow me back up. This is a good one. Okay. So remember when Morph was hanging out outside the shower? It was before that. It's the scene that they had to cut because it was Disney Plus. This was shown on Disney Plus After Dark. Morph is actually walking out of the shower and he said, "Woo, big boy." And then that's when Logan walked out all grumpy because Logan didn't want to do that, but he was just bored. So yeah.
I think Lance watched a different show.
I just got off work, guys. I'm sleepy, so I'm just
Lance is putting the X in the X-Men.
But here's the thing: I'll give Lance this in terms of like that was a weird I didn't expect that one, but like that was a thing of like what this show did of like showing two perspectives, which I think Bo has said about, and I think even Charlie Feldman said at one point that like you could see when morphs into Jean when Logan is like hurt in the finale. And says like, "I love you, Logan," and when I like keep like his way, their way of saying keep fighting, and it's you can look at it both ways. Morph admitting feelings for Logan, or doing something that they know Logan would keep fighting for it to live for Jean. And I love that there's moments in this show that you can see both perspectives and be like, which one is it? I haven't really at this point have an issue with which side you look into it, but it's a valid point of view to have for both of them. I think the actor said that it's just platonic that Morph and Logan are best friends, but that they could have those conversations. They could have dialogue deep like that. And at this point with Logan, that's a miracle at point like that. Him hearing that acknowledgement from the actor made me think back to the episode. I think it was when they encountered Nightcrawler the first time in the Alps, and you see Rogue passing by a church, and Logan's there, And at that point, Loco's like, "Fuck this," and and I remember her shedding a tear and be like, "Wow." I'm not saying that Logan's committed now, but like Logan is trying to seek solace in something and taking that extra step. And I remember being like, "That's such a beautiful thing to take away," and seeing that like there's potential and stuff.
And he's
whether
praying
it's
at the end
true
of
or
that
not.
episode.
Yeah.
He's praying at the end of it, so that's all development.
Yeah, I think we all could say that like "Remember Me" was something that like I was there when that people, grandparents would be like, "I was there when the MASH finale happened," and it's still the record of the television when
back in my day.
I was there trying to rush my video out and just be like, "Is everybody okay? Who's who's okay?"
Right? Yeah.
People were losing their shit, and I kept trying to check on Lenore on social media the whole time, and be like, "How are you doing?" Because you might have just stole the Emmy from everybody else, which I still think she should have gotten more love.
Yeah.
But yeah, Darren, do you have a favorite character arc moment from the series?
Oh man, I mean, moment like you could take any moment from episode 5 and be like, that's I think that's one of my favorite episodes of TV of all time.
Yeah.
Like that was so special, and like it's very easy to like point to that Gambit scene and be like, well, that's the best one, and like I mean. Honestly, I think my favorite moment, like my favorite X-Men of all time, is Nightcrawler, and that very next, or I think it's the next episode when he appears in the like theme song. When he's in the intro, I was like, "Wait, did he just get upgraded to like regular?" I was like, the like week prior, me like joking about it, being like, "Well, there's an extra spot now. He can join the team," and he did join the team. I was like, "Wait, this is incredible! This is so cool." But like that like dynamic as well between Rogue and Gambit during the season is so special. There's that line of dialogue where it's like, "Your heart beats for me, but I can't feel it," is so heartbreaking. And then ending the episode and what has to be one of the most heartbreaking moments in TV history, be like, "I can't feel it," as it pans to black in this like 9/11 kind of feeling, like for these characters, like Beast like looking at the TV just being like, "Dear God," like they just lost their friends. Like
how many damn it.
Tragedy.
I mean,
dude,
that's what the showrunner said. He wanted to invoke 9/11 type feelings with that one, and
and they succeeded.
It brings you out of there because you had other people that were just like doing their own thing, carry on with their lives, and then bam, it just hits you out of nowhere. Because when you see Storm and Forge and their little arc doing their thing, they turn on the TV, boom, they're brought right back to reality. As soon as Xavier gets that flash of the Genosha Massacre and Gambit turning into a skeleton, his priorities instantly change. So.
Yeah.
Well, let's not talk about how Beast was trying to how Beast had his own little like relationship thing going, and the lady turned out to be a complete and utter asshole who was only after one thing. And Beast thought that he was gonna give her, some of his beast, but I guess not.
But he still cared for her when in the finale,
when
he was holding her hand because he did feel connection for her. And I was trying to to me, Gambit's reply, "Some things be deeper than skin, share.
Be deeper than skin."
We'll be friends until then, mon ami. And to me, I've already shown it, but I'll show it again. To me, this broke me because again, it's not just not even just why the hug is happening, why she's crying. Especially with me, you go to Mexico, you go to Dia de los Muertos, and you're doing that to the X-Men, and you're putting me being there with them. I'm like, I remember being like, "Fuck you guys for putting me in this pub," in the most complimentary way of like, "You just nailed it. You just got a nail and whatnot."
I have a question.
I have a question. Does it pertain with sexual stuff? Because you've been on a roll these past few minutes.
You already
know. It's a legit question about Nightcrawler. Okay. If you had the choice, would you choose that power set if it came with everything, the 3 fingers, the odd looking feet? Would the fur, because everybody needs to know, like, that's very coarse fur. It's not skin. He's a fur ball.
Yeah.
Would you do that?
I'm glad you didn't say furry.
That's right. This might sound
I
This might
wasn't thinking about that, but okay.
This might sound too dramatic, but at points, especially with how stuff is going on in the world
Yeah.
and how I've been feeling these past few years, I don't even have to pretend. Sometimes I look at Kurt and I'm like, I feel like that dude. I'm like, it's I love that said power. And maybe again, this is so corny. I remember when this ended, I remember telling relatives who kept asking me about, I keep hearing about this X-Men thing. I kept telling like, you have no idea how much I wish as a kid I could have gone to Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. Like, I would have given anything just to go there for like a summer. Just give me one term, one year of just going to that class and school and just being like, what is up?
Yeah.
It
I
was
just want to
either
ask
Beast or Nightcrawler for me. Either or. I would choose to be like for Beast. It was because of Nicholas Holt's portrayal, which is why I'm like he made Beast cool again when it wasn't like when X-Men wasn't as mainstream. He gave the character like he humanized the character more for me. After what they were doing throughout all the years in the comics, through his the more he mutated, they went more cat-like. He brought back like the human aspect.
McCoy,
and he brought back like the McCoy side to him, and how in all his films, he was basically like, I don't want this, but at times he ended up embracing it. That's what was missing in some of these comic book storylines for me.
Yeah.
But my fault, Jake. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No problem. I just wanted to ask if Rona could pull up that comment down there at the bottom because I wanted to address that.
Okay.
So, just a little bit of a thing quickly, where they're asking, hey, do you think Gunn would revive Justice League because of X-Men 97? Pulling up a quote here directly from James Gunn himself because he was asked that same question.
I was going to say that too. Yeah.
He says, X-Men 97 is fun because it's unique and not desperately trying to follow the trends of everything around it. So I'd rather keep doing that. So that kind of answers the question there. The reason why this stands out is because it's unique. It's not trying to write off anything's coattails. Yes, it's succeeding. It's following up a cartoon from years back, but it's not trying to copy another thing by doing it. It's not trying to be, oh, look, this is Invincible, but X-Men. It's not trying to be anything like that. So to answer that question, I get the idea behind it, but also you have to think they would not do something like that without Kevin Conroy. So just to address that quickly because I saw it and the quote from Gunn popped up in my head, so I had to go find it.
To me, that's the biggest thing is that Kevin's not around, so it'd be really, really hard to do that show without him. You could, but I'd prefer you not to. Leave it at it. Give me. Actually, you know what? Weird concept. Give me a new Justice League animated show. How about that? A brand new one with a whole.
Yeah.
We don't let's revive. No, we're good.
Yeah. Make a Justice League show in the My Adventures universe, maybe.
I was about to say I'm really enjoying the exploration of that, in that new Green Lantern show, and I've really enjoyed, I've really enjoyed just the conversation of people being like, what else could we possibly get in that universe? I love the idea maybe a Flash show or a Wonder Woman show in that world. That's really fun.
And they're doing a Power show, which is a group of heroes. So it sounds like a kind of version of Young Justice in a sense, like younger heroes.
Yeah.
So that's fine. And I think what X-Men 97 is doing is great. Mm-hmm. And I think the whole concept of Spider-Man 98, if that's to happen, it's gonna be way down the road because of the fact that the Neighborhood Spider-Man show right now.
Yeah.
They're not gonna have two at once. And honestly, who's to say that Christopher Barnes can't reprise his role as Spider-Man in X-Men season 2? Right? He's already been shown twice, right? Twice.
Yeah. In Ultimate and then the finale. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think who's to say that we can't have a couple of cameo shots of Spider-Man when it makes sense, and then have an actual episode where he actually talks. Yeah. Right? Who's to say?
Because you had that with Cap in 97. You had the X-Men show up in Spider-Man show back in the day while their show was still going. So anything's possible.
Yeah. And this show isn't good because it's it's just bringing back that old show. It really does feel like a new show. It really feels like they just they're we want to do a new X-Men show with these same stories, but let's just bring that cast back and bring the inspiration that is so good from that original show and do something so fresh and original that I do think this will be the inspiration for the MCU's version of the X-Men.
I hope so.
I think they're gonna
I
bring
hope
this
so.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It actually should feel like, it should feel like a team, because like, the original movies.
You don't got to listen for kids.
They weren't really X-Men. They were
Hey,
just
listen, my wife and
Wolverine
the
and the
dog.
X-Men. That's what they were. So.
And Darren, might I add, you're looking very Clark Kentish today, with the hair down the middle. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh.
This big girl, yeah.
Yeah, it's perfect to hide the disguise.
Yeah. I'll put it back. Wait, where did he go? Oh my God!
There he is.
What? Oh, Darren's back. Oh my goodness!
Whoa,
Oh,
whoa,
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 wait!
whoa,
Oh my God! No.
Superman.
Oh God, I'm blind. I can't do
Wait,
that.
this isn't live, is it?
Yeah, no, this is
pre-recorded.
pre-recorded. We can cut this out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll edit this in post.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm running on like work fumes, so I'm goofy today.
I get it. No, we'll be wrapping up soon. I think what I just wanted to express again is just that season 1 was so good.
Mhm.
And we don't live in a vacuum. We know there's a lot of changes, a lot of stuff being in play to make sure season 2 comes out. At this point, it sucks that I might have to wait a little bit more, but like, just do right. If you're shifting,
Yeah.
do right by the shifting and make sure that it follows what it left behind. And yet, if you need to do something unique, go do so. But I hope that they know that it's like, it's not just you're just following the original show anymore. Again, like the movies now, you have to follow this now.
Mhm.
And creatively, that's might be a great challenge for others. For others, that might be a huge burden. But if you're gonna bring back these characters, at this point, you know what you're getting into. It's not like the Guardians when that first movie came out. It's not like you can give your own spin and whatnot. It's like these are foundational stuff that again, you can do your own perspective, your own style, much like the comics do, but you're following season 1. And all I hope is that, like, don't just start shifting into Wolverine focus just because he's the cool one. And and this is a Wolverine hardcore fan saying this. I'm like, don't forget to shine the light on Roberto, on Aurora, on Kurt. And now, from what we were teasing with this new squad, don't forget about Kitty. Don't forget about Emma. I want to spend time with Emma, but like, okay, you just had a second mutation.
Yeah.
What does that mean now in this ball game? Spend time with Peter. There's dude, and again, poignant, relevant. There's so much you could do with Peter right now. It's Colossus.
Yep.
Like, there's so much you can do.
Yeah.
And Alana Magic.
A lot of these characters have great story potential.
Yeah, and like, not to shift it off of like 97, but that does make me very excited for when the X-Men do enter the MCU. The MCU's like whole thing for forever was giving each character their own individual project. I love the idea of like, what does like a Colossal movie look like? What does a Gambit movie look like? A Gene and Scott movie, a Storm project look like? Like, I would love, like, heading into the X-Men movies, if they did like an anthology series of like 8 episodes, and each episode was like their own individual story to show like, what's Rogue steal, what's Storm steal, what's Cyclops steal. Like, I think that'd be really, really sick. And then which of these characters could hold their own, maybe in like little mini franchise? Could like a Storm trilogy work? I think so. I think that'd be amazing.
Well, they tried that, way back in the day, because they made X-Men Origins Wolverine, and they go, like, this is going to spin off into a whole like series of Origin solo prequel films, and then that film,
I hate them so much that they messed that up.
And then it tanked the whole idea.
Yeah,
it killed it.
And the specials exist now on Disney Plus.
Yeah,
the specials exist. I'm like, use that as another way to tell a story that doesn't involve you spending $100+ million check, and like, just try it. Don't be afraid. If Werewolf by Night wasn't afraid, don't be afraid with this right now.
Yeah, and you have characters in that world that can work in that special presentation type of format. So there are plenty there that could work.
Yeah. But yeah. Folks, if you've been watching this now or in the future, thank you so much for joining. please hit the like button, subscribe for more videos. We're growing out a lot of stuff, a lot of iron in the fire. But more than that, I want to thank my panelists, my friends, for joining me to just geek out a year later about this. And who knows, people dug this, they want to see more, because again, it's 9-10 episodes that he did this for 10 weeks. So if you want more, let us know in the comments down below. Let's go across the board, starting with Darren. Darren, where can people find you? Plug yourself.
You can find me in my closet every Monday through Sunday. No, you can find me at Darren McClymans on the YouTube, Twitter, TikTok. I just finished a stream over on my channel talking about Avengers 2012. So if you want some more like retrospective on old Marvel stuff, go check me out over there. And if you want more of this panel, like me, like with this panelist, like check out Council, check out Party Nation, check out wherever the heck we end up next, because I feel like we're all just everywhere nowadays.
Unless Darren skips Council again.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Scott.
Chainsaw reacts everywhere except for Twitter. Kidding. Not doing a Phil bit. Chainsaw reacts everywhere. Thanks once again, Ronan, for having me. Sorry that I'm late. But I appreciate the invite. I love collaborating with my friends, not just on Council every Wednesday, but I love just in general us hanging out and chatting. Because guess what, guys? Fun fact: we're actually friends. Holy shit! What? Crazy. I know it ain't.
That's canon.
Well, debatable. We'll have to discuss that later. So might get some rewrites in season 2, but Council creators every Wednesday. X-Men 97. Can't wait for season 2. And thanks to everybody who's on the panel here, because I consider them really good friends of mine. So go check them out. Support them. Do it.
Beautiful. Lance, Phil Collins,
woke.
Oh, you caught me in the middle of fisting
That's
my
dirty.
my Wolverine popcorn bucket. You can catch me everywhere at Lance_Geek_Drums. I'm on every social media. If you see me calling somebody a asshole or an idiot, that's me. I got Party Nation on Tuesdays. Posting a video almost every other day on my YouTube channel. So be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if you're already liking and sharing, subscribe, because why else are you on my channel?
Yeah. Why else?
Why
welcoming
else?
committee. Jake.
So handsome.
Here at JoypadJake, pretty much everywhere. YouTube, Comical, where I do a lot of my writing. We got some of these things down here at the bottom. We've got Let's Plays of older games. We've got retro reviews of some of those. Rankings for character costumes in video games. We did a Green Lantern one a while back. Our next one coming up is Iron Man. And then you can catch me on also my own stream series that I do on Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern called Jake's Lost Levels, where I get all my PS4 data back that got lost. And then, like the others said, you can find me on Party Nation on Tuesdays with Lance, Council Creators on Wednesdays with Chainsaw. Whenever Darren has me on the pipeline, you can find me there.
Never.
And and like you said, like we're all friends. Surprisingly enough, it probably looks like we hate each other sometimes. Maybe we do on some days. Who knows? But support all these guys. They're all great people. I consider these guys friends. Yes, shocker.
Stop copying me.
I have friends. Surprise, surprise. I do have friends. Funnily enough,
Nice.
surprises me too. In some days, surprises me too. But yes, support all these guys. And as for myself, I have a goal. I'm trying to get to 2,000 subs by the release of Superman. We are 300 and some away. Let's see if we can do it.
Strip.
Nice.
Oh, maybe.
And Ronan, where can we find you?
People.
This isn't your show.
Sorry.
No, that's all good. Folks, when I say this, I'm not saying it just because sponsorships, although that'd be nice, but like subscribe to the channel, grow it out more. There is a ton of iron in the fire. I mean, throw a rock. It's Star Wars. It's animation. It's Last of Us. It's Marvel, DC. We got a whole ton of coverage we got for you here in the channel. In about a few weeks, I'm going to be traveling to Arizona to go to Game On Expo and cover it for a weekend as much as I can. Thanks to the people at Game On Expo for that. And yeah, in a month, I got travel travel plans. Jesus,
Oh, pants.
pants. I do have plans. To Japan. We're going to Star Wars Celebration for a full-on week. So know that I'm going to be doing a lot of cool stuff coming down the pipeline with that. And start tuning in and get ready because that Sunday as well, I'll be joining Kyle Katarn and his podcast Dark Forces in the panel at Star Wars Celebration. So stay tuned. Got a lot of stuff building up. The more the channel grows, the more my crazy ideas can come to fruition, and the more I can travel and just randomly visit, any of these fellas and be like, "Yo, I brought a mic and a camera. Let's go do some shit." That's the end goal for me at this point when I reach 1,000 subs, and then after that 100,000 subs. That way, I get that damn plaque and be like, "I did it!
That play button, man.
Give me money,
Amazing.
Give me money.
Give me money.
folks." Where you're from, what you choose to believe, I think that we all should aspire to be the X-Men. Not just following Charles' stuff. Take a look at what Eric has to say, and Jesus Christ. But look to the community as much as you can, especially in these troubling times. But I feel like stuff. What the hell? My X-Men. Until then, stay
My
tuned.
tonsils.
Yeah.
My
Stay
nostrils.
tuned. Take care, everybody. Buenas noches. Muchas gracias. To me, my X-Men. We're out.
Arriba.
Jesus Christ.
Oh